This is me, Undead Viking. I'm here with another one of my session reports for the D&D campaign I'm running right now. This one happened last weekend, and the young ones didn't get a session in, so the Grognards are one step ahead of them right now. But the young ones are getting together on Friday. There was some like football stuff and weightlifting stuff and sleepover stuff going on, so no D&D got played by my son and his group. But the Grognards did get together and we played, and this is going to be about them. So this is my Shattered Shores campaign. This is my kind of Dark Sun OSR world that I created as just an island hopping campaign. They are on a large island that they are trying to explore and discover everything that's going on there, and trying to basically get rid of the bad stuff that's on that island so that the established city that is on that island can eventually like branch out and have more villages and have other cities, and they can claim the island in its entirety for the God King, which is the overarching religion that exists. So if you want to go back and watch the other ones, as far as the other campaigns, maybe you'll get more of the background there, but just think this, big giant religion in charge of everything. I am not going with the trope of like they're secretly evil or anything like that. They are very oppressive, I mean, to other religions that are not them. They worry about that as a possibility, and they deal with invasions or attacks upon them decisively and with justifiable force, I guess would be the word I'd use. But they are not like secretly evil and an evil like Cthulhu cult behind the scenes or anything like that. They are a force of good. All right, so the last session we had a situation where the elves are evil in this world, and the elves are rarely seen, but half elves are seen pretty often. This half elf, they got into a fight with it, and half elf actually killed a couple of the party. Now the party, the way it works is everybody has three characters, and their base is this ship that they live on, and the ship then takes them from island to island, situation to situation as they go. Each person has three characters, and they pick one character to adventure with. Now, they have hirelings and things like that they bring along, and that's basically so they don't have to, because a lot of them is like, let's just bring all of our characters. And I'm like, no, you're only going to run one character each, but you can hire people to come with you. So the idea there is that the remaining player characters that are on the boat are left there to take care of the boat and take care of the things that go on that boat. And also there's things that if they need to research stuff, or train, or anything like that, those PCs can stay on that boat and take care of those things behind the scenes, if you will. Like, oh, I'm going to make potions, or I'm going to write scrolls, things like that. And as time goes by, that stuff happens in the background. All right, so they went back to the boat after the fact. Like, strangely enough, like 3 of the 5 people, 2 of them were killed, but 3 of them actually got knocked to exactly 0 hit points. Now, I don't believe in the 0, you're dead. You have to go into negative hit points, and then you basically lose 1 hit point around. There's no roll to save yourself or anything like that. You just lose until you hit -10. Classical rules: you hit -10, you're dead. So if somebody else can stabilize you via spell or healing salve or just even a first aid kit, that will save that person's life. But since everybody was knocked unconscious, the 2 people that were knocked into negative hit points, they just bled out and died. And one of them in play was a monk who was the older brother of another player character. Brad's player character, Monk, died, but Jason's player character, the Templar, which is our word for a paladin in this campaign, he was the younger brother. And he was back on the ship, actually, because he got really hurt and he had to heal. That's another reason why we put them on the ship. They can heal and they can rest and they can recover. So the Templar, of course, upon hearing of his brother's demise at the hands of this half-elf, swore vengeance and said that they would needed to track this person down and bring her to justice. So the next morning, they went back ashore onto this portion of the island they're on, and they started to track her down. There was the character that had Captain Thorn, the player that had Captain Thorn, actually made a ranger to replace him, because that's one of the things too. When your character dies, you just make another one. And since we play an OSR rule set, it's very easy to make a character, come up with them pretty quickly. He made a ranger, and the ranger began tracking because they went back on and they saw that the bodies of Captain Thorn and Azur the Elder, the two, they were gone. The bodies were gone. But they did see that the half elf had left. And so they begin tracking her through the jungle, because I normally when I roll for wandering monsters, I have a D20 table, and you can do wandering monsters how you like. But the way I do it is that I roll a 20-sided die, and the lower numbers are encounters, and they start off with one being like the most deadly, two, and there's a range. And as you climb up the thing, eventually you get to a point, like probably around, maybe in some cases, depending upon the terrain, it's like a 9, or if it's like in a jungle with tons of critters all around, it's like a 12 or a 14. When I roll a d20, there are different factors. Like I'll ask a druid or a ranger if they're leading the party. I'll ask them, are you actively trying to avoid running into things, to fight things? And usually they say yes. So if that's the case, then I add in factors and I add numbers to the die when I roll it. And so they're either going to get less impactful encounters, or they're going to have no encounter whatsoever. So they have this ranger, and they are, they're booking, trying to find this half elf to bring her to justice. And so I rolled a lot of different wandering monster chances. They didn't have one until they unfortunately did have a situation where they ran into a tree that was assassin vines, basically vines that wrap themselves around people and drag them into the maw of a tree for them to feast upon them. And there was dead bodies littered around the tree. And of course, the paladin, I mean, playing the character, and I gave him role playing credit for this. Jason said I rushed to the bodies and see if any of them are my brother. And of course they weren't. They were like, there's this cult that's on the island that they've been dealing with, this cannibal cult, and but they were dead. These cult members were dead because the tree had killed them. And they had left these desiccated husks after it drained them of their fluids and protein, left them surrounding the tree. And so he rushed forward, and of course the vines reached down and grabbed him. And pretty big fight. The paladin actually got devoured by the tree, but they were able to yank him out with like 1 hit point left, which was pretty impressive. And they burned the tree to the ground. They got a few little bit of treasure. There's like most of the stuff that they could have got when they burned it. They lost, but there was some coins and some gems inside the husk of the tree, and they collected those. They continued on, and earlier in another session, there was a druid that's back on the ship at this point, but there's a druid that has a parrot as his companion animal. And the parrot had flown around and looked to see what it had, and said that there was this very tall building, because it can speak to the druid, and it has reasonable intelligence, like the intelligence of like a preschool age child, let's say, and explained big building, tall building over there. And they eventually found this tall building, and it's totally out of place. There's this small clearing in the jungle, and there's this like 7-story tall building, stone for like the first 3 or 4 levels, and then wood levels built up after that. Several windows, but they've all been boarded shut, and there's doors leading in that these stone doors that have been bricked over, and also there's this stone plaque on it written in strange language that they recognize was Elvish language, but they can't read it. And they were like, well, and then the tracks led right to that building, and so they were like, okay, so she obviously went in here and she figured out how to get in there. Now, as they approached it, the paladin actually, or the Templar, I should say, actually had this massive pain occur in his, like, basically his entire body as he got close to the tower. Excruciating. He couldn't walk forward. He made a couple of saving throws. No actual damage, just like basically like his nerve endings were on fire. And he eventually collapsed, and the players dragged him back. And as soon as he was like 30 feet away from the tower, he felt fine. No ill effects, no nothing. And he tried to do it again, and the same thing happened. And so they realized that a few of them, the other players, not the Templar, approached it and were able to, like, couldn't find any way to get in. And that one just ended up being a mystery. They were like, okay, well, we can't get in. The elf approached the building, and then they actually saw tracks from the elf leaving as well. So they said, okay, well, we're going to have to figure out exactly what's going on. And we can't do anything with this right now. It's just beyond us, which I appreciate it. I like it when players like say, all right, let's stop hammering on this wall and let's do something else because this isn't working. A lot of times players would be like, okay, let's try to dig a trench, or let's try to like fly up and get in a different way. But they didn't do that. They just kind of accepted it and said, all right, let's follow the elf because that's what we want to do anyway. So they continued following the elf, and I finally rolled a wandering monster check again, and a band of like these cannibals were running towards them, and so they all hid, and they watched as actually like two or three. No, it was two cannibals like had worried looks on their faces, and they were running away, and then they were followed by another three cannibals who looked like carrying weapons, and they were chasing them. And so they just let them go by. They were like, okay, well, let's just not do anything with that. And then they continued following the tracks. And eventually the tracks led to this kind of small little village outcropping of this cult of these cannibals. And they saw there was a fight going on between two of the cannibals, and which ended up with one of them slaying the other. And they watched as the one that survived sat down and was tended to by a healer, while the rest of the group of the cannibals like collected the dead body and started well, you know, what cannibals do to a dead body, right? And they noticed the tracks for the elf were heading into the area, so they approached it, and they actually approached, and the Templar went out, and you know, just said, you know, we have no fight with you. We don't want to fight. We don't have any issue with you. We're looking for the half elf. Have you seen it? And the person who had won the fight, he stands up. He's this huge, you know, just, you know, think big, tall fighter, strong guy. Stands up and says, yes, we did see this half elf. If you want me to bring you to her, you know, come with me. And he pointed towards this temple that they had. And he's like, well, why don't you just bring her out? And he just said, no, no, no. You know, it's just like, I don't want to bring her out. She is our captive. Please, you know, come with me, and I'll bring you to her. And the Templar's like, yeah, I don't trust you. And so he said, all right, well, I mean, we have her, so, you know, you can come back anytime. And then at this point, the ranger was searching around, and he actually noticed there was tracks from the half elf leading away from the village as well. And he conveyed this to the Templar, and he said, "Okay, well, we'll see you later." And then, you know, the Templar just basically said, "Well, I'm afraid I can't let you leave," because he was trying to trick him, obviously. And a battle ensued. And it was a tough battle, but most of the people in this small village were non-combatants. They weren't going to do anything. They were able to defeat them all, scattered the rest of them. They searched the camp, found a little bit of treasure, but no sign of the half elf. And I said, "There's this temple. You can go in there and look if you want." And they were kind of beaten up, and they said no. And I tried to convince them to go. There might be like lots of cool things in there. You want to go? And they were like, they didn't trust their DM at that point. So they said, nope, we're not going to do anything with that. So, and they followed the tracks, which was probably the right thing to do. So they followed the tracks, and the tracks led them to a beach. And there was, if you remember from the previous session, there was another boat that they knew was there because they were there to find these heavenly stone, this heavenly stone that had fallen from Earth, and they had cracked that open, and they had unfortunately had there were these like basically glowing pebbles that were within that stone, and they affected people when they grabbed them. And but they were supposed to bring back the heavenly rock, and the heavenly rock broke, and then they were supposed to bring then they will we'll bring these pebbles back, but if you touch them, the power from the pebble goes into their body, and it has an effect on them. So they did not. They needed to get that back, and they were positive that since the monk that was killed had those on him, they were positive that the half elf had them. So they noticed that there had been a dinghy on the beach. It was gone. They could see the dinghy was attached to the boat that's out to sea. And they were basically saying, well, we need to go out there. Obviously, the elf took the boat, went out there, and that's what it is. So they did notice on the beach there were like several large, like frogs, like they kind of were staring at them, looking like, you know, man-sized frogs, and that kind of worried them a little bit. I rolled a wandering monster, and I rolled a reaction roll for the frogs, and they were not hostile. They were just watching. And so they said, well, we can swim out there, but they grabbed some, they chopped down a tree and got some, like, you know, basically a log for some of the people that didn't think they'd be able to swim out to the boat to hold on to, that they could put in front of them, and they could paddle out to the ship, which was, you know, a good maybe 300-400 yards from shore. And they so as soon as I just to scare them, I wasn't going to do anything. I said, you get into the water, the ocean. Luckily, it's low tide, so you're not dealing with a lot of that. But as soon as you start, one of you happens to look back and you see these giant frogs, toads, whatever, that you see them kind of hop slowly towards the water, and then they dive in, and they seem to be heading your way. So there's a kind of moments where everybody's like, ah, they're expecting these giant frogs to eat them at any moment. But that was just to kind of scare them a little bit, because I rolled another reaction roll and it was still, you know, indifference. So I basically internally ruled they weren't hungry, so there was no reason for them to risk their lives trying to attack. So they paddled out to the ship. They climbed aboard it. Now, this was another ship sent by the city of Solus, by the God King. Another group of adventurers from the God King came to do the exact same thing as them. And when they looked above, they saw there was just dead bodies everywhere and blood everywhere. And you know, and obviously this was probably the handiwork of the half elf. And so they climbed aboard, and they're looking around on the deck, and they can't find anything. And I knew that the half elf was there, but she was hurt, and she knew that she probably wouldn't survive another fight. So she was trying to hide out long enough where, you know, she could escape. And the Templar says, "I know you're out here, you elf witch. Where are you?" You know, yada yada yada. And then so I had ruled. So elves have lots of different powers and abilities, and it's kind of like one of those dungeon master, whatever, like the rule of cool storyline things go. And I had ruled that she had reanimated the monk's corpse, basically filled it with sand, you know, and used her magic to basically reanimate him, and using like ventriloquism spells to basically make this animated creature speak like his brother. And he's like, and I had the monk comes out, and he's like, "I am fine, brother. I don't know what your problem is." And he's just like, "Oh my gosh, you're here!" And again, kudos to Jason for role playing. He's like, "I can't believe you're alive. Thank goodness." You know, he runs up and gives him a hug or whatever, and he's like, "Come." It's like it's like, "Well, what happened with the half elf?" He's like, "Oh, we're all wrong about the half elf. The elves are the ones we should be following. They're the ones we should be working with." And he's like, "Come, brother, you must meet her." And he starts trying to drag him into the hold of the ship. Yeah, and then of course a fight breaks out. And so they're having problems fighting this creation, because it's like, you know, it's an animated creation, and they're stabbing it, and like sand is coming out of it. Like, and they're not able to really seem to affect it at all. And it's, beating them senseless and just clubbing them left and right with its fists. And at one point, I like because the half elf was basically trying to escape. The half elf tried to sneak off the ship without anybody noticing during the battle, but somebody did notice her, and so they attacked her, and she fought well. She did a lot of damage to a few of the other players, but they eventually were able to take her down. And the thing was, she had like a glass jar, and they could see it had two of these these pebbles in it. But when they finally took her down and killed her, the animated creation that she made, fell to the ground, leaving just like the husk of the skin of the monk left behind. And the one of the players, my friend Joel, who's playing a monk as well, he actually like tried to punch the jar, and he did, and he broke it during the fight, and he grabbed one of the pebbles, and he grabbed both of the pebbles to hold on to him, and like he wanted to suck down the power of both the pebbles, but I did rule that only one would work. Once you've used one, it won't affect you anymore. And so one of them did, and he gave him I think he gave him +1 permanently to his strength, if I remember correctly. Maybe it was even +2. And I have a big table of different effects that can happen. And there's side effects as well. And one of the side effects of him is that he's got like really low body temperature, which is going to help him in the future if like he's making saving throws against cold or anything like that. But it's going to be detrimental to him if he ever gets attacked with like fire spells. He'll take more damage to those things. So they took the one pebble they had left. They put it in a bag or a wineskin or something and stoppered it so it wouldn't go, because it's like a Mexican jumping bean. It tries to escape, and they then piloted that boat that they had back to their boat. They split the crews up and they took those boats back. So they returned to the city of Solus. A few things happened. They found out that the person that was their quest giver was actually kind of not really a good person, and they noticed that they had some corruption within the House of the Sun, which is the kind of magistrate aspect of the God King religion. There was a great deal of corruption going on. And this was a story effect that I had created, that I had planned on. And they noticed that their quest giver, who sent them on this quest, and the quest giver that sent the other group on the same quest, they had been executed for their crimes. And they immediately were like, "Oh, geez, are we in trouble because we went and did this?" So there was a big internal discussion about the party, like, do we actually like come and report that, hey, we were sent on this quest or whatever to do this? And so they had a couple of their contacts that they had. They reached out just like, hey, are we in trouble? And they were assured they were not in trouble. They should just come in and talk about what happened. And so they came in. They discussed it with their, in like within the people of the church that they report to, and they were assured it's not your fault. You're not in trouble. And they were given a hefty reward, of like, I think it was like each person got like 500 gold pieces, and they turned over the last pebble that they had, and they were great appreciative. They got to meet the head magistrate, which was a big moment for them, and then like basically this is going to be one of those things where they're making a name for themselves, and the storyline as it goes forward, they'll have this person will remember them and might call upon them for a favor. And then they were told, it's like, you've been through a lot. You did something that nobody would have expected you to be able to pull off. You defeated a half elf, which is amazing because they're very good. They're very dangerous, and you've done a great service. So we're just, here's your reward. You have the next several weeks off. Like, there's gonna be no specific quest that you're gonna be sent on. Please take this time to recuperate, gain levels, since some of them gain levels from the experience they got, and be able to, outfit your ship with new items, outfit yourself with new armor, new weapons, whatever, with the money you just got. And then also just basically do whatever you want, because I've given them several different quest ideas of things that they can experience, they can go and check out. Or this is a West Marches campaign where I give them lots of options, and then they decide what they're going to do as a group and say, let's do this, and then they let me know, and then I do the prep work for the next session, which they've done, and they're gonna like go search for these ancient holy relics that they've heard about, and they're gonna go and try to find those. And so I've been prepping that. But yeah, it was a good session. Like I said, they got their vengeance for the two players that died, which is good, and they were able to defeat a big enemy. They got their just rewards, and we've furthered the storyline of the world and the storyline of what's going on. So there you go. That is Shattered Shores session number 3 for the Grognards. I'm playing actually this coming weekend. I'm playing both of them. I'm doing Friday night D&D with the young ones, the boys, and then the Grognards come over on Saturday. So we'll be doing both of those, and then we'll have sessions for those as well. I also got some other stuff. I got some things I want to talk about as far as with tabletop RPGs. I want to talk about some things that I've been reading and give like some mini reviews of those. So if you hit the like, subscribe, or whatever, and you want to be notified when I make those, go ahead and do that. Thank you very much. Taking the time to watch this. Really appreciate it. And until next time, I'm the Undead Viking, and you have yourself one heck of an awesome day. All right. Bye-bye.